Well, hello everybody. Welcome. It's the midweek update. It is the 1st of October. It's my favorite month of the year. I love fall. All sorts of sports are great. You guys know how this works. We're going to share trades, take responsibility for the outcome.
All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. This video has been released to the public after a delay required by our compliance department. Maverick Traders received this market recap immediately, along with real-time trading support and resources. Maverick Trading is a proprietary trading firm that backs professional stock and options traders with firm capital. Our traders keep 70 to 80% of the profits they generate. If you're ready to become a professional trader, click the apply link in the video description below. Let's break down what happened in the markets today.
So let's just get into our current outlook and some of the news headlines. All right, here we go. So the U.S. government shuts down. It's the first time we've seen the shutdown in 7 years. So it happens. It happens, and usually it's just a disconnect. You got the Senate and the House, and they go back and forth, and we all know that fun game. I refer to it as the Real Housewives of politics. Now, when it comes down to whose fault it is or what everybody wants, we need to follow sentiment. We're here to trade the stock market, trading the markets in front of us. A couple of things that we can see. So the Trump RX, this fun little website of buying drugs online, could happen. It created a massive surge in the drug manufacturers and healthcare sector. I actually did the end of day post yesterday, and it was the day before that I saw them moving, and I had no idea why. It wasn't until I did a little bit of research. It's like, okay, so it's a rumor, but it is a massive rumor that's created a lot of movement. These are things we can trade because we're watching it materialize in the stock market. Keep in mind, folks, we have the government shutdown. I don't have a government job, and I imagine the impact could be immediate. I'm not sure how it works, but the INDU, the DJI, whatever you want to call it, and the S&P are pushing all-time highs today as we speak. We'll see if those hold. A little bit of a disconnect going on when it comes to some of the weakness there. Another thing I want to discuss is some of the economic numbers I've seen because they are a little hard to gauge. Now, I decided to keep it as a monthly +3 and a +1. The +1 could be a +2 because we're up at some of the resistance levels. We'll see the chart here in a second. But if it breaks out, I can easily go to a +2, +3 because I like to catch surges as they happen. This is just technical. So let's get into some of the economic news. As of late, these numbers have been a little schizophrenic, I guess, for lack of a better term, but I'm not sure kind of what to make of them. So let's just start from top to bottom here. So I got the pending home sales number, a contraction, expected a small bump, and it was an incredible move to the upside. Could it be one and done? Could it be revisions? Sure. So we got our JOLTS job openings, and this actually showed a little bit of an expansion. Consumer confidence drops. I'm good with this. When I start to see numbers like this, and it becomes super, super difficult because this down 3,000 jobs on the ADP non-farm for the previous announcement was actually a 54K positive number revised down to a drop of 3K, expected to be 52. Now, between those numbers, it was supposed to be slowing. This is really big. This is very difficult to follow, right? I can't see a slow increase or a slow decrease or back and forth. It's just incredibly off and then incredibly off. Here we have the ISM manufacturing prices, worried about the tariffs increases, and we're actually seeing it's actually getting cheaper. So then we get into our unemployment claims, which I was really looking forward to these two numbers, the unemployment claims and the non-farm payrolls, because I'd like to see a little bit more consistency, more so than some of the numbers that are so far off. However, these are tentative now because they are government reported, meaning if there's a shutdown, we might not get that number. So what I've decided to do is just throw all this out. And my favorite thing to say is we trade the markets in front of you because where money goes is real. If price increases, it's real. If price decreases, it's real. These numbers, they could be a little bit off. So I'm going to have to set that aside. There's not enough consistency in here for me to gain an advantage. So let me just jump straight into it. We have the move to the upside. This is where I started to build the class, and I was watching these things move higher. Now, keep in mind, folks, the Dow is actually pushing into new highs. Intraday, intraday, and that's why I put it in quotes, or excuse me, in the brackets there, is because the day hasn't finished yet. But with a government shutdown leading into a disconnect of where money's going to go, and we've seen these before, the markets seem to just kind of shake it off. Statistically, they usually kind of just weather the storm and kind of wait for things to happen. So that's kind of where we're at. So here is today's candlestick. We saw a pivot point a little while ago. We saw this inside day, I should say, 2 days ago. But yesterday, I liked that engulfing. And I did mention that it was off of a small increase in volume. Now, volume hasn't finished for today, but if we could get something a little bit higher, sorry folks, I've got to get this so you can read it. If we could see this break or retest these areas, and this is a pretty good surge so far today, but you could see how this gap down and has come back. So there is definitely buyers at this area, and this is the SPY. This is more of the financials. This is the S&P 500. If you take a look at, let's look at the diamonds, which has a lot of that influence when it comes to the healthcare sector. Let's take a look at it, and that itself is pushing higher. It's retracing a little bit, but remember that's an intraday all-time high. Here's a close of the all-time high, and here we are right back at it. So I wonder what is going to happen when it comes to, okay, what do we do? What happens? I mean, if there is the Trump RX, folks, I saw the Obamacare pass and I saw things happen. I've seen lots of things go through, and I've seen kind of the follow through, but it's very preemptive. I'm seeing a lot of preemptive moves. Look at Eli Lilly, up another 6, almost 7% today. Look at Merck. Look at, well, there's a few of them there. ABBV. They're just all surging. So it becomes this, the market's kind of ahead. The market's comfortable taking their bets. Whether it's real or not, it was enough for money to go into the markets. So what does that mean for us? Well, when it comes to the markets, we have to disconnect what the economy is doing. Looks like a little bit of a retracement here on the Dow. The NASDAQ looks like it's floating higher, and the S&P is just up a little bit. I imagine we close slightly higher, slightly lower today, unless there's some sort of a news or the government comes to an agreement. So we'll see where that goes. All right, so let's jump into our first trade. Let's get up top here with Mason. Let's take a look at UPS. And I've got some trades that I carried over. Some of the sideways stuff that we've been looking at. DEC was a good one. Well, Victoria's Secret. We had asterisks on them because we thought they might go higher and lower. And guess what? They both did. One went lower, one went higher. So we'll look at those as well. Here's UPS. It looks like it's just kind of a consolidating sideways. This has been on my bear watch for a little while. It seems pretty comfortable at this area. It seems like it's just kind of sitting there. We could add it to the sideways list if you'd like, but it does have a bear feel to it. Let me set it aside. Let's take a look at another one of yours. ISRG. ISRG's nice, bear, rolling over. Okay, I like this. Healthcare, medical instruments, and supplies. I do like the pattern itself. I'm going to put it down on our bear watch just for the chart itself. Thanks, Mason. Let's take a look at a couple more. This is NVIDIA. Just taking another move to the upside, right? Hey, if things are going to go up, it's kind of this darling. It's leader of AI. It does what it does. It's got these projections, and it's a little bit reluctant. Gap down this morning, as the rest of the markets did, but it seems to be floating a little bit higher. So I'll keep an eye on that. Let's put it on the watch list for the bull side. Let's take a look at Wayfair. Wayfair, it looks like it's just kind of consolidating. So in this situation, just kind of wait for it, see if it can kind of play this area. We might move this. This could be a cool sideways stock. Let me open this up, see if I can't show you guys that it is actually bouncing. It bounced off of that support, so it looks like it's within a range, but we saw this. In fact, I'm going to show you these examples. DEC broke down and a Victoria's Secret broke up. So it's within a range now. So let me put that on the sideways list for now. Moving down the list here, let's take a look at LNT, and we got to trade with it. Alliant Energy. Energy was a sector that I was super pumped on. I still am, folks. We can take a look at it here in a second. It's having a pretty aggressive pullback, and I imagine that's just because it needs to have one. So anyways, let's get utilities. This is a 6570 call for October 17th. I believe that's, let's see, today's the 1st. So that's got to be the 3rd Friday. And let's see, 6570. Kind of a +1 trade. I do like how it's poked its head out. It's a little reluctant for now, but you've got a couple of weeks to see if this can kind of consolidate. I hope it consolidates. In fact, I'd be fine if this thing pulled back a little bit on you. That'd be great. If it pulled back a little bit and then pivoted, it would actually set a higher low. And you could see in this last little bit, it hasn't done that yet. It came off of this. It had a nice, beautiful break here when the averages crossed. And what a good push all the way back up to resistance. So here it is. I would expect a little bit of hesitation, maybe even some sort of a correction. But it can turn anytime it wants. It doesn't have to be at these levels. But even if it goes against you for a little bit and then turns, understand that's positive because it will have set a higher low. Well, another healthcare, right? Biotechnology, probably just kind of following suit with everybody else, but it just seems to be climbing back from correction. What's really neat about this, Bill, is you said, hey, the 2 weeks target is 38 and the 4 weeks for 40. Well, okay, I could see both of those. I could. Shorter term would be a little easier to get to, right? But, if you think this is going to retrace back up to some of these levels here, it's got a little bit more meat on the bone. So it really depends on what your outlook is. This has really climbed quite a bit. And it's back up to some levels it was at before here. I guess it's its earnings, but boy, this thing scratched its way back up here. You have to decide, okay, can it get to this area and say, okay, I need a break? Or is it going to say, okay, now that we're here, we're going gangbusters and they're going to hit this 40. I would be a little bit more +1 on this one. I think the shorter term, a smaller target would make more sense. But this really hasn't had any sort of retracement, has it? It consolidates. It's a small pullback here. This might consolidate a little bit. Now, if you're looking, Bill, for a target at 38, why don't you try some sort of a credit? Because let's say it only gets to 37.50 or it continues this sideways journey. It'd be nice to have, okay, it didn't get to 38, but at least I got some sort of a credit. So I give it +1, 0 +1 on that. Here's ETR, another utilities company. Nice breakout. So nice push to the upside. A little extended. Wait for some sort of a pullback or consolidation. But let's go ahead and add it to the list. These are ideas here, folks. You guys can figure out what you want to do with them. HWM. Industrials, another one. The previous one we looked at was a little bit extended, where this seems to have this slow grind higher. It becomes difficult. This higher price stocks tend to have a little bit more volatility than you think. Actually, what I should do is zoom in the chart so you guys can actually see that. All right, and then you can target accordingly. See, so nice breakout. Looks like it's just kind of bleeding higher. A lot of these are going to have to be time frames and targets. So we took a look at two different industries so far, Cassandra, but make sure that, hey, if you're going to take one or the other or both, you've got to stagger a couple of things. Either your aggression when it comes to your target, +1, +2, 0, stuff like that, and or week 1, week 2, week 3 expiration cycles. Because we're in a market, folks, that will react to what happens over the next couple of days. And it's not just the sector. The Trump RX is a big example of that. However, if the government starts back up, what happens? Do we have a big pullback? It's going to affect everything. So it's nice to have some of these staggered. Very similar to your previous charts. This is aerospace again, or industrials again, excuse me. Breakout a little extended here. Keep that in mind. Let's take a look at your other one here, ABBV. Yeah, this one's easy for me to say. It's difficult because it'd be so fun to chase these, but it makes 0 sense. And what ends up happening is, folks, is I learned a long, long time ago, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that when I chase a stock, I'm already well behind, which means I'm going to pay way too much for it. I'm trying to counter trend trade it. I'm trying to catch that last ditch effort, and I'm always wrong. The transaction's going to be difficult. The bid-ask spread's going to be super wide. You're 2 days behind. And yes, sometimes they work, but more often than not, they don't. So anything that's news driven, I usually kind of set aside, look for something in its sector. You did have an extra one or two, I think, healthcares that we looked at that could benefit from it. They're not going to be plus threes like this, but I found that the more that you divulge in the stuff, like trying to get GameStop when it was a big meme thing, or jumping on NVIDIA when it was the hottest thing. I mean, or here's a good one, Oracle. I had a lot of traders try to grab that Oracle, and it did not work. So it's best just to kind of pump the brakes, let that do its thing, and take a look at the other ones that we looked at. AEM. I've seen gold have a pretty good move, and yeah, I always think as gold is defensive. I do a lot of work with the Forex side, and gold is a big gauge of, you kind of balance it out against currencies. You see, hey, we're going to government shutdown, worries about policies. Look, maybe I shouldn't cut as aggressively because there's a little bit more inflation there, right? We're seeing a little bit more inflation. It's kind of stubborn, but then you turn around and you see the worst job numbers I've ever seen. So it becomes, wow, that's a tough job. But the flight to safety remains. Here's AEM. I'd like it. I think it's a good trade to the upside. I like where it's at. It's a little extended. Maybe some sort of a correction or a pullback. We saw that happen a little while ago, but it's still bullish overall. Okay, let's take a look at this. This will be fun. Thanks for sharing this. Let's take a look at it here. This is GE. I've got an October 10 long 295 call, right? Okay, so it's 295 call. Our original target after short option expired, so this was a diagonal spread, was 310, but kind of already surged. Hold through this pullback or take profits now. And this is super difficult because what ends up happening, Garth, and for everybody in this situation, thank you for this, you kind of have to follow along. I shouldn't say you kind of have to. I would like you to follow along with the rules that you started with in the first place. So if this was a 295, 310 diagonal spread, the 310 expired, you got your max credit, and it's actually kind of working out. This morning might have scared you a little bit, right? It came down here, and now it's back up to this area. If your idea was to sell another call against it, you should do that. If your idea was, if I get a certain percentage of maximum gain on the whole combo itself, then you should do that. What makes these difficult is when we talk about a detailed trading plan, you have to have the if, ands, or buts. And in this situation, it's not quite at 310, and it is just over to 295. So if I had a plan that was just A, B, and C, A would be if it goes against you, and you just close the whole thing. B would be if it gets close to the 310 expires, you sell the next one. And then C would be somewhere in between. So if you're at a situation where, because the pattern hasn't failed, it's still great. It's looking reluctant just because of today's candlestick, but it hasn't quite gotten to that 310, which is your original target. So you have to make a decision to follow your original plan, which would be, I imagine, now Garth, I know you and I've worked with each other a few times, would be to sell the next leg for the next week. Or, hey, I got a bird in the hand. And what ends up happening is when you take that bird in the hand, you end up leaving everything that could be in the bush, right? So go through your plan. I would follow it, and whatever it tells you to do. Okay, if it doesn't get to this point, close it, or if I've got a certain percentage, close it, or hey, the 310 expired, I got to sell the next 310. You could actually even tighten it up. You could sell the 305. A tough place to be, but it's still a good chart, and it's still moving to the upside. Thanks for sharing that, and that's, like I say, that's why we got to detail a plan. If you don't have anything in your plan to deal with this situation, this is a wonderful time to do that. All right, thanks for sharing that. Okay, let's take a look at a couple from the previous week that I wanted to share with you guys. So the first one, I'm going to start with our sideways. They're mostly all sideways. XLF was one we had on the sideways. This is the financial sector. We talked about a tight range, and it stayed there. Now, folks, for a little bit, I thought for sure this thing was going to get above that. We talked a little bit about it. I wanted to play this thing sideways. These actually spooked me. I'm not going to lie. I got spooked on a few of these, but look what happened. Lo and behold, it's right back down. So the sideways has been working on that XLF if you guys were wide enough. I did not take this one because I was absolutely too chicken. I'll just be honest. But let's take a look at a couple other sideways. This is DEC. This was brought to us a couple of weeks ago. Awesome call here. the idea was, okay, hey Joe, it's come down. It looks like it's going to be bearish, and I believe it was down. Sorry, Mike, if I'm putting words in your mouth, but the idea was, okay, it might be kind of a sideways. However, we said if this starts to slide here, this could be bearish, and if it starts to test this lower area. So great trade if it was a 0 to -1. It's working great. It turned into a little bit of a -2 here, but I think it's at the support level. So this was the asterisk as a sideways low. The idea was to sit between these levels, and it just bled lower. So, and it went right down to a target of 100 there. So it's worked out. I hope a couple of you guys caught that. The other one was Victoria's Secret, and this was a sideways with an asterisk from you guys. Awesome trade. And the idea was, look, what happens if it turns at this area, right? If it comes down and bounces here and hits this resistance. But today, it's gone from a 0 to a +1. So it's kind of cool to see that our sideways trades, once they continue their overall trend, they go in that direction. Victoria's Secret's up, deck is down. That's what I've got. Fun day. Talked about a lot of things, a lot of situations and positioning. Keep in mind that when you come across a position you don't know what to do next with, it's a great time to add more detail to your plan. So I'm looking forward to what we do today. I mean, take a look. We're right back up to this 0. I mean, we pulled back here. We're flat. I imagine we stay pretty close to this mark unless we get some sort of news. But let me share our trades, and then we'll cut you loose. So this is what we got. Thank you for sharing, always, guys. This is Victoria's Secret. It came from sideways and went to bull. Here's deck. Came from sideways with the bear. XLF stayed sideways. I like Wayfair here sideways. It's in a tight range. Try to stay away from the stuff that's in the news. Try to stay away from the stuff that's super volatile. Those are the things that are very difficult to catch. So thanks for showing up and thanks for sharing, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.